How are you, Dr. Sue?
Good, good. How are you today?
Absolutely fine.
Okay, that's good. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry I'm late today.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll make up for it, of course. But because I had a little bit of, I had some internet problems with the previous class, the pre-intermediate. So we had lots of wasted time. I thought it would be better if I could just sort of cover the whole 2 hours better than having to do it on other days. Yeah, so I thought I'd just cover it with her. It's easier.
That's okay.
All right, so what are the updates? Any work have you checked anything new? Oh, by the way, did you receive the email I sent you?
I just checked it this morning. Did you send me your I don't know, there were too many things. So the internet, I downloaded I know there's an article, I think, and there's references.
Yeah.
Harvard reference, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, the other references. There are some other sort of work-related teaching references. You can ignore those, but there are four articles. The 4 articles which are written.
Yes.
Those are the ones I was telling you about, the scientific essays, the reports.
Yeah. You wrote them yourself?
Yes, I wrote them myself, those.
Wow, okay, mashallah. Okay. Yeah, the reference thing, I don't know if you still remember community medicine. They want a Vancouver style reference.
Okay.
At the end of the so yeah. So I was just checking on the Vancouver style thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. But I did see the way that you wrote the article is really good. I liked it.
Yeah, because the student I did that commissioned work for, they wanted it in Harvard reference style, in the Harvard reference style. So the references were all done. They were all done in that style. But I think it's not too much of a big issue which style. I think it's quite easy to do it, but the writing itself, that's
easy when you do it. Like one of my friends said, there's a program called Melody. You can just download an article, and then I think put it within the windows when you're writing. I don't know. I think I have to just check that too. But actually, I told my supervisor about this thing and said, no, you're going to do it manually, and you're going to write everything and put the.
I don't know why you even discussed it with him or her. You shouldn't. Just do it and give it ready, and they'll never notice. They won't even.
Really?
Please.
Well,
this is Libya.
Yeah, I should have.
And here in Libya, you can even copy paste. You don't even have to. You don't even have to write anything. Who's gonna check? Because in the universities,
She warned me. This is like reading my mind. She said, "Hey, don't copy paste."
No, ignore her. You just copy paste. Do you know why? Because we don't have the software which can detect plagiarism. Do you understand?
I know that.
Yeah, in universities
she told me that there's a free copy or something, and then she's like warning me. So I was, oh my god.
No, because I'll tell you how it works in around the world, okay? Because Libya isn't part of the world; it's from another era. But in the rest of the world, because universities have plagiarism detecting software. So because when I was doing the work for the student, I told you about, for the client, what happens is whatever we write, whatever we paraphrase, if I just copy and paste it, it will detect the source of those copied sentence, and it will come out as it will come out from article number blah blah, the year blah blah, university. It will come, the whole source of that text will come out in the system, And they will tell us, of course, this is not your writing, you didn't write it, and it's unacceptable. So the system has like a maximum range which we shouldn't exceed. The range is usually, I think, 20% or 25 or something. So they tolerate up to 20% stuff which is quoted, which is taken from other places, as long as it's not one full paragraph. So if it's a few words, a sentence in 2-3 paragraphs that's lifted as it is from another place, it's okay. And as long as the whole text, if you have a 1,000 word text, okay, and this 100,000 word text, you have only 200 maybe words from this text are from other sources, that's okay. But the rest has to be yours. So you have to actually write it and paraphrase it. If you're taking the ideas of someone else, you have to paraphrase the whole sentence to make it different. So there is some work involved. But here who's going to even read it anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, well, I don't care what she's gonna say. I can't do it by myself, so I'm just gonna do copy paste and download whatever, and then I'll try to change some sentences, not all. I don't know. It's like making things difficult for me. No.
Unless you're going to hand this to some kind of foreign university, some kind of university abroad, or somewhere you're applying to, that's a completely different story. But otherwise, I don't see any point in putting the effort. I don't think it's worth it. All right, so back to our topic. Yesterday, the last thing we covered, we were doing the planning part. We were talking about the different stages of planning that you have to plan. First of all, before you plan, you need to understand the question. You need to analyze what they want. And in order to analyze the question, you need to understand the difference between a topic word, a micro topic word, and the instructions. So this is an important part of question analysis, because this will help you generate the ideas, which is your second stage or your second part of your planning, which is brainstorming, coming up with good ideas. Of course, idea generation is also related to your ability. There is some imaginative skills involved. It needs a little bit of practice. And you need to be able to tell a main idea from a supporting idea when you brainstorm, because when you're under stress and you're brainstorming, the ideas that come out are usually a mix of both. So you need to make sort of an executive decision. Is this good as a main idea, or is it good as a supporting idea? If it's too general, it's probably more suitable for a main idea, because there's an analysis to be done, and you can talk about it, you can analyze it, you can give examples, you can sort of break it down. But if it's already a small sub part, it's difficult to squeeze it more, if you get what I mean. So maybe you need to make a decision when you do that. Structure, we agreed, is sort of the easy part here. To be honest, it's just writing good paragraphs, and it's the formatting of the text itself to be done in that four layered cake sort of form. This one, the introduction, body 1, body 2, conclusion. This is your cake, and it needs to be done like this, and each paragraph needs to be separated from the next using a blank sentence. So this is the structure part. Then the vocab part, which I'll talk a little bit about today. So today I want to cover, or at least discuss in some kind of, with a little bit of detail, vocabulary or lexical resources, and how we can improve it, or how you can improve your band score in this particular descriptor. So here with us today we have, let me show you the text I have in mind. Where is it? I think it's, here it is. Can you see it? No, I need to share it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about vocabulary or lexical resources, how to boost them, why is it important, why bother, and maybe there is a good way to do this. Okay, so so as you can see here, it's they already tell you right from the start that it's up to 25% of your criteria, your marks in whether it's writing or speaking, because they will mark you for your range, right? So it says here that this means unless you score above 6 in lexical resources, yeah.
Getting overall 7 is extremely difficult. Okay.
No, here what they're telling you is, you see, they're telling you that unless you score above 6, because remember I told you the system is by average, remember?
Yes.
Let's just get that descriptor open. It's here. Okay. Do you see it? The descriptors. Because with the descriptors, we only have 4 parts, right? Grammar, vocab, coherence, cohesion, TA, task achievement. Each one counts as 25% of the rest, right? Because when they mark you, they're going to mark each category, each descriptor, they'll mark it separately. So imagine you have, in task achievement, you have, let's say, 8. In coherence and cohesion, you have maybe a 7. Grammatical range and accuracy, let's say you have maybe a 7. And let's say with your vocab, you have a 5. There's a risk here that you won't get a 7 overall, right? Because that one is going to pull your average down. So the point they're making here if we go back to the article, what they're trying to tell you is that, where is it? What they're trying to tell you is unless you score above 6, getting an overall 7.
Yeah.
But this of course this doesn't apply to just lexical resources. It applies to all of them, or any of the 4 descriptors. So if you score less than 6 in any of the banned descriptors, you're in trouble, because this means the others need to be way above 7 for the average to be 7. If we want the average to be 7, you get the point?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the idea with vocab. Vocab is one of the sort of sneaky skills in IELTS in general, because if you check the sentence, what they're telling you is, did you know that the reading and listening are vocab tests too? So the whole IELTS, it's like a scheme for a vocab test. Basically, they're constantly testing your vocabulary range, and this is what separates the 7s, 8s, 9s, separates them from the rest. Usually it's vocab, because vocabulary is one of the last things that you pick. Here I'm talking about sort of the high end, high level kind of vocabulary you need for these, for 7, for 8, for advanced students, because these don't come in elementary. They won't come in pre-intermediate. In pre-intermediate, you have most of the grammar you need to use daily. Maybe students, the pre-intermediate students are still sort of, they're not very good at using it, but they've already covered most of it. But with vocab, it's another story, because vocab is very closely related to written English. The vocabulary range of written English is far more extensive than the vocabulary range of speaking. In speaking, we don't use that many words. If you think of it, we have a limited number of verbs, a limited number of adjectives, because we talk about the same things whenever we speak, right? Daily. I mean, think of your daily vocabulary, even in Arabic, it's very, very limited. Shed, jet, klet, shrub, get. You know, the certain, probably, I would say no more than 25, 30 verbs maximum, much less. So this is the idea. So vocab is a bit of a sneaky issue. So now it says here, we're going to check a few examples, okay? The table shows in the words from an official reading test and words on the right. All right, so again, this little issue, this issue of synonyms, I think this is of course more relevant in reading than writing.
Reading.
Yeah, because they're just reminding you how deep the vocab issue goes in this test. They're telling you everything depends on your vocabulary range, because in the questions, they will never use the same words in the text. Never. Never expect them to use the same word in the question, asking about the same thing in the test. It just won't happen. They will always use a synonym. And then it's up to you to understand what they mean. So even the questions themselves are vocab tests, mini vocab tests. The question in and of itself is a vocabulary test. Take a look at this. So in the word, in the question, they'll tell you civil calendar, municipal calendar in the text. Then it says months were in equal length, 12 months of 30 days. Divided the day into 2 equal halves, split the day into 2 12-hour periods. New cabinet shape, a floor standing case design. To organize public events, to coordinate communal activities. Do you see the idea? Maybe these examples aren't too extreme, but even for a pre-intermediate student, these are pretty extreme. For someone who's not really there, they would be lucky if they knew what a cabinet is, and then they changed the whole sentence, made it into something else, or communal, or municipal. It's very unlikely someone less than intermediate will, someone who's B1 or less would get it. Now, the wrong way to learn vocab. Okay, now this is very common here. And luckily, I don't see as many students as I used to with this problem. And here, this problem, by the way, it's not only just with IELTS. Even in general English, people are still used to this idea of lists, trying to memorize words. This sort of Jurassic Park mentality of memorizing words from our Jurassic schools. Which is a very big problem, because whenever you try to memorize a word out of context, you've already lost it. Even before you even started to memorize it. There's no point in memorizing a word out of context. This is the key word, context. I always try to emphasize context, because if you don't know how to use it in its place among other words, or in the right situation, in the right social situation, if you're doing general English, or the right academic situation, there's no benefit. You've reaped no benefit from learning this word. This reminds me very much of the stupid thing we medical graduates do by learning rare syndromes. They memorize these syndromes and all the rare.
Yeah, because they do that, because in the exam they like to put extreme questions, and yeah, you can get surprised when you see a rare syndrome.
I would actually advise against reading any syndrome unless it's common. The idea is statistics here. How common is this syndrome you're reading? It's likely that throughout your clinical career you won't even see a case of this. Weird.
Yeah, of course. If it's like really, really rare, you wouldn't.
Most syndromes
really
are rare. They're not common. Maybe Down syndrome. You need to know everything about Down syndrome. It's a fairly common syndrome. But I mean, the other rare ones, the other weird ones, the one with copper, the Wilson disease, for example. How likely are you going to see Wilson disease? And you need to understand the Kaiser-Fleischer rings and all that. This is stupid. And this mentality, we still have it in all aspects of life. The focusing on the particular and forgetting the general, and this is a problem. So here they're sort of telling you the same thing. The worst way to learn words is from is a long list of academic words, or to simply read the dictionary. This is it. You are not learning the words in context. You're not learning the how. You don't know how to use them. Do you get the idea? It's what's the point? So this is the first thing you shouldn't do. You need to know how it is in a sentence. And if you must see a new word, or if you want to look up a new word from Arabic to English, make sure you read as many examples as you can. So whenever I bump into a new word in English, and I do, maybe not so frequently as when I was learning, but I still do occasionally see a new word. The first thing I do in Google, I put it in Google. I don't put it in Translate. I put this word. Let's say the word is memorize. I say memorize in sentence. This is the only thing I do. And then I read as many sentences as I can. And I get a feel for the word. So they're using it here like to study, but they're using it in a way that means you retain what you studied. He memorized that poem, so he read it by mind. Another idiom, to know it like the palm of your hand, to know it by heart. So this is memorized. I get a feel for the word memorize. Now I know how to use it, because I didn't just translate it, memorize, يحفظ. No, that would have been the worst thing I could have done. Do you get the idea? So here,
I get your point. Yes.
Yeah, they're telling you if you want to improve your vocab, this is the worst thing you can do. Don't rely on words out of context. Now, they're still talking about the same thing. Yeah, here it is. Of course, the examiner will know when you're not using it correctly, because it will just stand out like a what's the expression? Like there's like a pimple, you know, on your face. It just stands out. It's very obvious. And I think and I think even for you don't even have to be an examiner, because when a word is not used properly, it feels awkward. It looks odd. So when you say I eat breakfast every day at 7 o'clock. Eat? Why did you say eat? It's have. But because the student is an elementary student, he's translating it from Arabic. ناكل أخذ فطوري ناكل فطوري. So he says eat breakfast. It's eat breakfast will be understood, of course, by a native speaker, definitely. But it's so awkward, and it's so it's not the right collocation. This is the idea. So immediately, if you're using words relying on your vocabulary, this automatically reduces two things. It reduces your lexical resources, and it decreases your band score also in cohesion and coherence. You're not making, especially if the way you're using the word is completely off the mark, this will also reduce your cohesion and coherence, because you're reducing how understandable your writing is if you're using words incorrectly. So this is the point here. So now they're telling you how to the correct way to learn vocab. And actually, I think I've told you about the book I have. It's it's an amazing book. I can tell you I've learned quite a lot of words myself from it. There's the only big disadvantage it has is that it's time consuming. But I think anything worth the trouble is time consuming in life. The book I have in mind, I can send it to you as a PDF. It's really, really, really good. And I strongly advise you to start doing it.
I have the time. I have the time, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to sort of boost your vocab in a way that will set you apart from a regular, let's say, regular good English speaker, to really set you apart, it's this kind of detailed advanced grammar, advanced vocab. And there's also an advanced grammar book. I've done both of them, and I have learned quite a lot from them. So I do advise you to work on those. So this is one thing, and we have this, an advanced or IELTS self-study vocab, because the idea is they always give you context. Because the book I'm telling you about, it has two sections. The first one is general vocab, and the other one is topic-specific vocab. So each time they give you some kind of topic: education, entertainment, business, crime, the justice system, the law, whatever. And in this topic, you'll have words in context, in different questions: matching, complete, definitions. So you have a group of exercises, and then you need to decide how to use them. And when you go back to the answer section, the model answers, They explain to you why you can use this and you can't use that, and why this matches that, or this is maybe an Americanism used more in the US than in the UK. So you get lots of details that you simply won't get from ordinary everyday social English. You'll never bump into these words. That's the purpose of these books. They're giving you vocab that you will not find in everyday language. Okay, this is the second point. I think I've told you about this, the non-fiction part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pick a book, TV show, radio, podcast, magazine. It needs to be non-fiction. It needs to be on the academic, scientific, sort of nerdy side. If you want it to have an effect on your IELTS vocab. Okay, special notebook. I think this is yeah, it's useful. It's useful. Just a notebook. If you're writing new words,
you have a notebook. Yeah, okay.
It's good. I think it's a normal exercise. Read or listen to whatever you have chosen. Pick 15 words you don't understand. Look up the words in dictionary. You can do this online. And review the new words. Okay, I think this is more general vocab advice. 4, 5, 6 here. If we want to summarize these 3 steps, it doesn't have to be 15 words, but they're just telling you. I remember I did this a lot when I was learning Portuguese. You need to when, let's say I take a magazine and I start reading it. Okay, of course, this depends on your level, but the number of words you understand will probably be less than the whole words, all of the words in the magazine, right? So in the paragraph, let's say the paragraph has 100 words. If you're a beginner or you're elementary and this is a normal everyday magazine, maybe you'll get 20, maybe you'll get 25, whatever. The idea is they're telling you pick out 15 words which are new. Here 15 is just a number. It could be less, it could be more, depending on the effort you're willing to put. And these new words, just write them in a list, and now you need to look for context. Here it says try to guess what they mean from the context. By the way, this skill is very, very, very important in reading, because there is a big chance you'll run into words which you don't know what they mean. And in the exam, there's absolutely no time for you to keep daydreaming or trying to figure out definitely what this word means. And since you can't look up a dictionary, this means the only thing left for you to do is to guess what it means from context. And this is almost always, it almost always works, by the way. If you have 5 words and you know number 1, word number 1, number 2, you don't know number 3, you know 4, you know 5, 3, you will know 3 for sure. Maybe you've never heard of it, but you can tell what it means.
Yeah, that gut feeling tells you it means that.
This is the idea. This is what they mean by gut feeling of guessing it from context. Very, very important. Okay. The next one is obvious, number 5. It's the dictionary part, but this is what I was telling you about earlier. You need to check it in a sentence or 2. You need to see how it's collocated, what works with this word. Do I say drink coffee? Do I say have coffee? How do I talk about coffee? You need to say have coffee, for example. You need to look for synonyms, antonyms, pronunciation. So you need to, there is a bit of work you need to do. Review the words after a new week. Maybe this is a bit overkill. I don't review that much, but this is also something you might use. Okay, so here they're giving you numbers. You've learned, you have nearly 100, 6 months, 500, 15 new words as language. Okay, here I think if we summarize all these points, especially starting from number 5 to the end of the paragraph, they're just telling you that this sort of strict memorization will not help you. You'll not be able to memorize more than 15 words per day. Our minds don't work like this. We are contextual, and if you notice this, even in our emotions are contextual. let's say one place for example, one place in the house, in your home, you fall down and, for example, break your arm. Maybe the stairs, or maybe a piece of furniture. That you will always have a negative reaction to that place, even when you grow up, because because the context it has been emotionally registered. This is how our brains work. We register the whole context of a certain event. That's why a certain place doesn't feel good for us. Maybe we've had a bad experience in that place, and vice versa. Or the smells, because if you smell something, for example, with fragrances, and you like that smell, your brain registers everything, registers the context of that smell. So next time after 2 years, you smell that smell, you don't remember the smell, you remember the context where you first smelled it. You get the idea? So with vocab, it's very similar to this. This is just how our minds work. So it's just, I think, basic psychology that they're just explaining to you how it works. Now here, let's check the examples. This is what's interesting for us as IELTS prep students now. Now take a look at these examples of lexical resources in use. I'd like you to read this first paragraph, and let me go to scroll down a little. And then after that, take a look at this. Just compare them.
Okay. Yes, a total difference between those.
You see how different it is.
Wow.
Even though they're speaking about the same thing.
Oh,
it's actually almost a word by word paraphrase, but it's completely different, right? Now this is
yes,
now this is something many lower level IELTS candidates, the ones who are always stuck in 5, they just don't get this. They're really angry. Why am I getting 5 each time? If you're writing like the guy here at the top, you won't get more than 5. Your vocab is too general. Your vocab is it's not interesting. It's not interesting. It's not suitable for an academic essay. This is spoken English. You're just taking your spoken English and writing it. It's not written English. Written English has its style, it has a feel, it has specific words, it has a register, a level of formality. There are many aspects that are not present in the first paragraph. Even though, by the way, the first paragraph is completely grammar error free. There are no grammar errors whatsoever. The grammar is 100% perfect. But the problem is vocab. The vocabulary is the range is very, very limited.
Yeah, but it's full.
Yeah, so there are no grammatical errors, no spelling mistakes. Even the punctuation is perfect in the first paragraph. Even the punctuation is on point. But the problem is vocab. The problem is the range of vocab.
But it's kind of like repeating the sentence.
Yeah, repetition is one of the first signs that the user of a language or the candidate has a poor vocabulary range. And like I said, with vocab, it's one of the it's one of the elite indicators of a student's of a user's language, because a person who uses sophisticated, and here sophisticated is a dangerous word, because there is sort of sophisticated in the right place, and there's this sort of pretentious. which isn't suitable. But here I'm talking about using specific, topic-specific vocab. And this is why they're saying topic-specific vocabulary here. This is what they're emphasizing. And this is what the book I was telling you about.
I need that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little too, the file size is a little too large for me to send it directly. So I'll just upload it on my Google Drive and send you the link, but it's definitely worth it. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So this is the idea. So you can clearly see that the difference is huge. All right, now this is it. So they're telling you 6, 7, and 8 users or candidates, they have some question specific vocabulary, but as we go up the bands, their word choices are more accurate and question specific vocab is used more frequently. So the idea is specificity. How specific is your language to this point? The greater your vocabulary range, the wider your vocabulary range, the more specific you are, the better your collocations, the less awkwardness you have, the more natural the words appear to the reader. So this is the idea. So here with band score 7, it says they're comparing them to the 6, of course. Some errors are permitted. So when we say 7, we're not looking for sort of picture perfect English. No, there are errors, but it's clear that these errors are sort of advanced slips of an advanced student. They're not the kind of errors that an elementary student makes. You get the idea. So even the errors here are not normal errors. So for example, an advanced student doesn't have errors with basic vocab, doesn't have errors with basic grammar, for example. This is the idea. So so there's more use of correct style and collocations. There might be repetition, but it's fine. And this is here, by the way, this point is applicable also to speaking. This is a bit like the Syrian girl in band 7, if you remember her.
Oh.
She made errors. There were some things which were a little awkward. There was repetition. There were small or a few grammatical errors, but on the whole, it was good. She deserved the 7. It's a bit like this. Here, cohesive devices. Of course, we'll talk about these in more detail when we get to the cohesion and coherence part. This is how you're linking, how well linked your ideas are. And this is also related to the structure part. Remember, one of our planning, our essay planning, the question analysis, brainstorming, structure, and vocab, if you remember the four steps we had. Cohesive devices is like we said, it's linking. So cohesion is linking. So here, this is more related to structure and also more related to the descriptor cohesion and coherence. So it's sort of a bit separate from our point, but there is a relationship. Remember, in our last lesson, last time, we talked about how cohesion and coherence, the descriptor, it's a bit of a result of lexical resources and grammatical range. If your lexical resources and grammatical range are already high, they're good. Cohesion and coherence tends to sort of swim along there because it is related. You will never get good cohesion and coherence if your grammar if you have poor grammar, if you don't have control over your grammar, and if your vocabulary range is also limited. How can you get good cohesion and coherence? It's a bit difficult, I think. All right, so cohesion and coherence isn't our top topic now. Getting a high score for lexical results is not about, this is the point when I said there's a difference between sophisticated and pretentious. This first point is another common error that many 5 and 6 band score candidates do. They think just throwing complicated words or rarely used words means now I'll get a high score in lexical resources. But this is not true, because if you're not using it correctly, what's the point? right? Think of this like someone who has very, very poor driving skills. He goes and buys a Lamborghini. Buying a Lamborghini won't make you a good driver.
Yeah.
You will still crash it, even though it's a Lamborghini. You need to learn how to drive, then you can use a Lamborghini. So complicated words, think of them as sports cars. You need to know how to use them. That's the point. That's why it's crucial when you learn them in context. You learn how they're used properly. Okay? So this is the point about using complicated words. To get a high band score, you do need to use less common words, but this is the key word. Precisely. The less common words, or the topic specific words, or the sort of high-end vocab, the specific vocab you want to use, needs to be used precisely in the right place. Otherwise, you're just making your writing, you're reducing the coherence, and you're making it awkward and unpleasurable to read. So you just stay away from it. So actually, for band, for lower level students, especially the band 5 or those who want to get 6, I usually advise them not to use any complicated vocab whatsoever, because they simply don't know how to use it. It's better to stick with the words you know. You get the idea. So you don't make your writing look too weird. Okay, so this is a little part by Christopher Pell. It's interesting. This is I think I've talked about this a little bit before. The reason why 5 and 5.5 is almost the universal score most candidates get, especially when they're untrained in writing. Okay, so here we have some statistics. These statistics are from the official IELTS website. Take a look at this. Here we have the mean band scores around the world, according to female candidates and male candidates. Okay.
Okay. Well, females are doing better than males.
They are, yes. But you can see that 5.6 and 5.4.
5.4, yeah.
Yeah, this is sort of the overall average around the world, right? So this is a very common score to get if you're.
Well, you said in Libya, you saw what, like what?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. It's very rare to see students getting more than this, and the only students who do get more are the ones who are trained. The ones who are, there are two groups of trained students. There's the lower level trained students. These are usually stuck in 6 and 6.5, and these are going nuts. These are the really angry ones. Okay, because they understand how the IELTS task, the IELTS writing task works. They have an idea, so it's like they can see the glory in front of them, but they just can't reach it because they have a problem with their overall skills. And you have no idea how hard it is to convince someone who's in, let's say, B1 intermediate. And intermediate is a good level, by the way. I'm not dissing on it or anything. But when you tell them you're not good enough for 7, they always take it as a personal insult. They always take it personally. And I understand why they do this, because they're comparing themselves to non-speakers or the average population on the street. Compared to the average population on the street, these people are excellent. They could even teach beginner levels. But for 7, they're still not there yet. You get the idea? They don't have that subtle and very sophisticated sort of specific academic IELTS vocab and using it in the right place. They just don't have that language yet. They haven't read enough non-fiction. They haven't read enough academic English, journals, magazines, this kind of stuff. They haven't been exposed to enough of this. So they're sort of in this limbo, this 6.5, and they'll never get 7. because I'm willing to bet that their the descriptor of lexical resources is always 6, or below. They might get even 8 in task achievement. Some of these people, their grammar might also be good, might also be in the 6.5 or 7 range. But because vocab is one of the sort of harder things to acquire, the lexical resources to get a high score in lexical resources, you need very specific training, and you need some drilling, some time investment to really get there. So this is one group of students, and then you have the others, the non-trained people. Those non-trained and lower levels, it's always 5.5, 5.5, 5. It's very, very common to get 5.5, and you'd be amazed also how many students, how many candidates just take the test, take it at a whim. They're like خنجربوا حظنا. They think it's a luck. It's a matter of luck.
Why do they do that if they're not like?
I have no idea. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would pay almost 500 dinars now, or I don't know how much for a mock test.
Yeah, it is.
Why
it is 500. It is 500.
Why are you paying 500 to do a mock test? You can just download the book. You can ask me. I'll send it for you for free, and do as many of these at home. Why do you have to pay 500 to do it at the British Council and wake up at 8 o'clock, or be there at 8 o'clock actually? Like, you see how stupid it is? And this is really common. And this is how they make money, how the British Council is. That's why it's still open in Libya. Because you have these idiots who just think it's a matter of luck, and let's try my luck, and I'll go, and then they get 6 in listening, they get maybe 6 in reading, and then they get 5s. Because when I worked as a marker, it's very common, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6. And do you know why it's common? Because this is the average around the world. Do you get the idea? Do you see? These are average statistics, the 5.5 and 6s. So this is the idea. So it says here, I'm a bit obsessed with what separates students who get the scores they need from Okay. So here, this examiner, Mr. Pell, is talking about his experience. Okay, so now he's giving us some little pearls of wisdom. Okay, so is there something that separates the average we just saw, the 5s and the 6s? What separates them from the higher ones, the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s? Is there something that those higher students share that the others don't? Here, Mr. Pell is telling us absolutely, and it's not intelligence. Okay, so it's not an idea, it's intelligence, and it's also not correlated with your English level. Now, this is something I would probably disagree with. I disagree a little bit with this. Time and time again, I see students who have no problem communicating. Okay, so here he's basically telling us by English level he means communicating. Okay, here we can agree with him. If you mean English level as communicating skills only, yes, we can agree with you. But fail in the writing test, it even happens to some native English speakers. All right. Now the point he's trying to make is, again, as he's sort of emphasizing a point. He's emphasizing a point I think I've spoken a little bit about, even in my previous videos, some of my old videos on the page, that it's a completely different story with writing. It's not related to speaking. The rules don't apply. Whether you have a good accent, whether you have good pronunciation, whether you've spent 5 years in the US or in Canada, this still won't translate. It doesn't translate into good writing. It's a completely different skill. A good swimmer doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a good boxer if he switches. He's a good swimmer. I know he has great muscles. He has great athleticism. Boxing is another thing. You need to train for boxing to be a good boxer. Okay, so 5 facts. Okay, now he's going to tell us specifics. Let's see the 5 factors, the 5 traits of average students. Of course, by average, we mean the 5.56 average. What do they have? What is their problem? And here, I think he's speaking a little more generally, and maybe not only on writing, but let's check these points. Okay, I don't think this applies to you, but it's good just to keep it in mind. So average students, they consume too much information and they don't digest it, right? They see too many videos, they follow too many teachers, they keep switching between too many courses, they get too much conflicting information. So this is one of their biggest problems. Okay, so let's see the second problem. This one. Luckily, I haven't had too much of this problem, to be honest. But it seems that it's a common problem. For me, I haven't seen this much. This one I've seen so much. This is the one I was telling you about. The idiots signing up at the British Council.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is very common here. They look up. This is common too. Number 4. I've seen it a lot especially in my regular classes. When I tell them you need to spend X number of hours or X number of months, or you need to read X number of grammar and vocab books, they always think most students, especially the ones I was telling you about, the intermediate students, the good ones, they always think you're holding something from them. And especially with our Libyan sort of personalities, it's really funny to see it. And
Yes,
they look
I
at you.
agree.
They look at you sideways, like, "Why are you not telling us?" I tell them, "I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You need to do this." And he's like, they give you the look that, "No, there's something else. Just tell us how."
You're holding something, yeah.
Yeah, they're like this, and it's funny, but it's shocking at the same time. I wish there was a hack.
Just a minute.
Take your time.
Yeah, the electricity went off, so I'm currently in the dark because I need to open something.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So, like I said, looking for tips, tricks, hacks. This won't help you. No, this is probably the most important point. Why these 5s and 6s are stuck where they are. They just don't do the work. They don't do the practice. They don't push their overall level to the next stage, I think. Okay, so here, let's very quickly summarize this point before we move on. So here, this was a mix of the first part of this article is specific to lexical resources, why it's very important, why it's one of the things that's usually missing, or the one that's a bit, maybe sometimes this is lower than the other ones. And this is why most examiners and most instructors, they usually, and I've tried this too, usually with writing, I always recommend the students to work on the thing they're best at, or the thing that's easiest to cover, and the thing they're poorest at. These two descriptors, when we're speaking about writing, they tend to be TA, task achievement, and lexical resources. TA is the easiest one to get. As long as you're covering the question well, and you're covering all the parts of the question, the task, you can easily get a good score in TA. Getting a 7 and an 8, and even more than 8, is not an impossibility with task achievement, because it doesn't depend on your overall skills, right? So even if you're in a 5 and 6 sort of category, let's say 6, 5 is a little too low, the task achievement can already boost your average a lot. And work on your lexical resources, because this is probably the thing that's pulling you down. This is probably the thing that's in the 5.5, 6 range. Push this a little bit, and then you'll have a 7 and a 7. And those two, even if they fluctuate a little bit between 6 and 7.5, you're still in the 7 zone. You get the idea? So if you work on your strongest descriptor and work on your weakest descriptor, these two, they tend to be lexical resources, the weak one, and task achievement, the strong one. The same thing goes even for your overall skills, speaking, listening, writing, reading. If you want an overall of 7, work on the two things, the one which you're best at, the one that you're worst at. The one that you're worst at as Arab speakers is probably writing. Work on that. And the thing that we're best at is probably either listening or speaking. We're usually better at one of those. Our oral skills are a little better than our literal skills, since we're using Arabic, which is a little too different from English compared to, for example, the speakers of French or Spanish or Portuguese. Those are the opposites. Those students usually have good literal skills. Their writing and reading is pretty good because it's not so far away from their own first language. They do have a problem with pronunciation often. Their listening and speaking sometimes is not as good as. So here, lexical resources, the importance, and the two examples we saw, they were very clear here. A good example and a poor example of lexical resource. Okay, let's move on to our next topic here. Here, I'm going to show you another article. Where is it? Okay, let's move to the next descriptor. Let's talk a little bit about grammar. Now here, we've covered until now, we've covered the task achievement descriptor, the one about task achievement. And now we've just completed or talked about lexical resources. Now I'm going to move on to our next descriptor. Let me show you on the other screen. Okay, so very quickly, we talked about task achievement. We talked about lexical resources or lexical resource. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what they mean by grammatical range and accuracy. We're going to chat a little bit now about this. Okay, so let's go to our grammatical range and accuracy. There's something called complex sentences. And complex sentences doesn't mean complicated sentences. It's a little specific grammatical term, and it's based on clauses. So there's something about clauses we need to understand. And if you get that right, and it's sort of سهل الممتنع. It's easier than you would expect. Maybe for someone who's in your level, it's a lot easier than you would expect for it to be of this importance. Because if you check band score 7, the descriptor, if you notice what it says, uses a variety of complex structures. So if you're not able to produce these complex sentences they're asking about, you will not get a 7. So what are these complex sentences? Let's find out. So let's take a little dive into advanced grammar. What are clauses? Okay, this is maybe not advanced grammar, maybe intermediate, upper intermediate grammar, but still. So a clause is a group of words that include a subject and a verb. It's not a complete sentence. So a clause can be distinguished from a phrase because a phrase doesn't have a subject and a verb. Here, if you notice a phrase like in the afternoon, in the evening, expressions like these, time phrases, these don't have a subject and they don't have a verb, right? So here in the afternoon, there's no subject, there's no verb here. And even drinking from the bowl, here drinking, we're using it as a gerund. It's acting as a noun. It's not a verb. Now there are two things. There's an independent clause, and an independent clause is just a synonym for a sentence. So it's a complete sentence, right? So if we're talking about independent clause, it's a complete sentence, it's a complete standalone sentence on its own, and it expresses a complete thought. So here, if you take a look at this sentence, okay. Okay, so we were. So the last thing I was telling you about was the difference between a clause and a phrase. Okay, so a clause, it always contains a subject and a verb. This is part of a clause. Okay, so you have a sentence, you have a subject, and you have a verb. Okay. Now a phrase doesn't contain a subject or a verb. So, for example, in the afternoon, drinking from the bowl, for example, this isn't. There's no verb. There's no subject here, right? Even drinking is a gerund. It's more of a noun in this example. Now, there are two types of clauses we'll talk about. There's the independent clause, and there's a dependent clause. I think the name probably can give us a clue what it means. So independent, it's independent. It's a standalone sentence. Actually, an independent clause is just another way of saying a complete sentence, right? Because an independent clause always has the formula of subject, verb, object. This is probably the sort of basic backbone of an independent clause, or let's call it a complete sentence. And there's a complete thought in this sentence. Take a look at this. Take a look at number 1 here. Tara ate a cheese roll, or Aya took a lesson, or Ahmed came late. For example, all of these are called independent clauses, and they have a complete thought. A complete thought is expressed, and there's usually a subject, a verb, and an object. And this is one of the ways they classify languages. They call them the SVO. So English is an SVO language, subject, verb, object. Arabic is sometimes SVO, it's sometimes VSO. Ahmed يذهب إلى المدرسة, يذهب أحمد إلى المدرسة, right? So we can start with verbs in Arabic. In English, of course, you can't. You cannot say ate Tara. Turkish is actually the opposite. Turkish is a VSO language. You start, a subject, subject, object. The verb is in the end. The verb is at the end, which is weird. Anyway, so this is the idea of independent clauses.
So you know Turkish?
No, I just I started a little bit just for fun. I checked a few. Used Duolingo, just for fun. But I didn't really. I know a few words, but I don't know it as a language now. But I can tell a few words, what they mean. And so it's just from my trips, that's all. I picked a few words. So I was curious about the grammar of the language. How can I classify it? And it's a really messed up language because it has nothing to do with the Latin group, like French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, this group. It has nothing to do with the Semitic languages, like Arabic, Hebrew, and it's not the same. It's a standalone group, actually, the Turkish language. Anyways, so this is the idea of an independent clause, okay? Now, let's check this part, the opposite, a dependent clause. So this depends on this depends on the main clause or on the independent clause to give it meaning. So it's a supporting part of the sentence, and it cannot be a standalone idea. So it cannot be on its own. Take a look at this part. And this one. After she watched the news. Imagine you're reading just this part, just the highlighted blue part. After she watched the news. Does it make sense after she watched the news? No, what happened after she watched the news? Who watched after the watch? Do you get the idea? There's something missing.
There's something missing, yeah.
So this is the idea of a dependent clause, all right? So the explanation here is Tara ate a cheese roll is an independent clause because it's a standalone sentence. Take a look at the second example. Even though my mother was a driving instructor, let's say you just read this part. So here you can see this is an if conditional, right? It's a bit of an if conditional. No, it's not an if conditional, sorry. It's a sort of contrast sentence. So if you say, even though his mother was a driving instructor, full stop. Do you get the idea? You're waiting. So what? Give us the rest of it.
Finish it. Yeah.
Finish it.
Yeah.
So this is a dependent clause. It's not a standalone sentence. You cannot use it on its own. But the second one, actually, if you read the second one, it can be used alone. My cousin failed his driving test 6 times. This is a regular past simple sentence. My cousin is the subject. Failed is the verb. His driving test is the object. It's a complete sentence on its own. When you put them together, now this is when we have a complex sentence. Do you get the idea? These 3 sentences, all 3 of them are actually complex sentences. So what is a complex sentence? A complex sentence is the combination of an independent clause with a dependent clause. You put these two together, you have yourself a complex grammatical structure. So this is what they mean in the descriptor here, when they used to tell us, when they told us we need a variety of complex structures. So it means we need a nice range of these kind of sentences. So this means the sentences which have contrast tools, like however, although, despite the fact that, these are all considered complex sentences because they're made of 2 clauses. If conditionals, by the way, are also complex sentences. And these are the first kind of complex sentences students learn, because students usually learn if conditionals in pre-intermediate A, I think, pre-intermediate B. They learn the rest of them, right? Maybe the if conditionals don't have much of a place in your IELTS. I don't think they really fit in. But contrast sentences like this, even though it's mother, despite the fact that his
comparing, yes.
Comparing, because comparing is an important part of your IELTS task too. So this one sort of fits in. Now the last one is a complex sentence, but maybe it's a little informal for IELTS purposes, but just for a grammatical example. A computer once beat me at chess, but was no match for me at kickboxing. All right. So this is a bit of a sort of comic sentence. You can easily see that the first part, the highlighted part, the computer once beat me at chess. Full stop. Here it's an independent clause. It's a normal sentence. But was no match for me at kickboxing. This is the dependent one. Without the first part, it wouldn't make sense. Okay. So here we just we took a sort of an idea. We got an idea about independent clauses. Now here it's the same thing. Dependent clauses, they're just highlighting the opposite part. Okay, so we already covered this here. Okay, now these 3 dependent clauses, or subordinate clause, this is another grammatical fancy name, could have been independent clauses. However, the opening words after, even though, and but turn them into dependent clauses. The opening words are known as dependent words, the main type of which is subordinated conjunction. What does all this mess mean? Let's break it down. So what they're telling you is another name, they're telling you there's another name for dependent clauses. You can call them dependent clauses, but you can also call them this other fancy name, which is subordinate clauses. Why subordinate clauses? Because they've been subordinated or put under the control of the grammar of the independent clause. Okay, so they're just telling you this is another name, and they're telling you also if it wasn't, or if it weren't for the way they started these words, like after, even though, and but, you would have had a normal sentence, right? For like this one, after she watched the news. So if we remove after and we just say she watched the news, this is a normal independent clause. It's a complete sentence, right? She watched the news. Subject, verb, object. But this word after, this is the one that ruined it for this sentence and made it a subordinate clause. It made it a dependent, it enslaved it to the other sentence, right? It made it under the rule of the first part, the independent sentence. So what they're telling you here basically is these words that change an independent clause or a complete sentence and make it dependent, these are called subordinating words, dependent words. The main type of which is subordinating conjunctions. Whenever you see the word conjunction, of course, this is a linking word. So a conjunction like but is a conjunction, although this is a conjunction. So these are words which basically link ideas. So we can already see that this grammatical accuracy part, or this here, this grammatical range descriptor is already linked to cohesion, because we're going to do a lot of linking here. So that's from the last part we covered the lexical resources. We understood how an improved lexical resource will improve your coherence, how understandable your writing is. With the grammar, it improves your cohesion, how linked your writing is, right? So this is the idea. So how are clauses used in sentences? All right, so it says here that, okay, before we move on, is it clear so far? Is it clear the difference between an independent clause, a dependent clause, and these words which made the change, how they are called subordinating conjunctions? Okay, so our next part we are going to further sort of break down or divide the different kind of clauses. So clauses could act like nouns, they could act as an adjective or an adverb. Let's see what this means. So take a look at this. I cannot remember what I said last night. So here, what I said last night, of course, this is the subordinate clause or the dependent clause. So this one is actually the dependent clause, right? So this type of dependent clause, it's highlighted. This type of dependent clause acts like a noun, right? So here, what I said last night, compare this example to above to this. I cannot remember my speech. So the reason why we called it a noun clause is because we can remove the whole thing. If we want to take this dependent clause, throw it away, and we put a noun in its place, it makes complete sense. It makes complete grammatical sense, right? So if you say, instead of what I said last night, and you just say my speech, I cannot remember my speech. It's a paraphrase. You've just paraphrased it by using a noun. Do you get the idea?
Yes.
So here this classification is more of, think of it as FYI, just for your information, just extra grammatical sort of knowledge. I don't want you to linger on too much on the classification, because they will, of course, in your writing, they will not ask you to classify them. This isn't a linguistic test. So don't worry too much about the categories. Oh, I have to remember. No. Just remember that noun clauses, they're called like this. The reason is because the whole clause can be switched by a noun. That's all you need to know. Okay, don't linger too much on that. The adjective clause, the same thing, the same idea. Here, who usually refuses to go near the water. If we remove this dependent clause, and we can just use an adjective, in this example, water shy. So let's read that sentence first. My dog, who usually refuses to go near the water, dived into the canal to chase a water vole. Okay, this long, annoying part here, the highlighted part, this is acting like an adjective. It's working like an adjective. It's describing the dog, if you think of it, right? So imagine if I change this with, if I say, my friend who doesn't stop eating cake decided to start a diet, full stop. So I can say, instead of who cannot stop eating cake, I can just say, my friend who's obese decided to start a diet. Do you get the idea?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so
I mean, this is in Arabic. Water shy, I haven't heard of it before, and it's describing a dog. Okay, that's unusual.
it's not a very common adjective. But they use this sort of shy suffix to mean something or someone who is not fond of doing something. So if a person is water shy, doesn't like water, this is the idea. So instead of, maybe this wasn't the best of examples they could have used. That's why I gave you my obese friend example. It's a little easier, right? So here just use any kind of who does something as a description of the noun, as a description of the subject, and you will have an adjective clause. All right. Okay. Oops. It scrolled too much. Restrictive and non-restrictive. Okay. So here another point. So restrictive, non-restrictive. What do they mean? So they're telling you that with an adjective clause, if an adjective clause can be removed without messing the sentence, it means here it's just extra information, okay? Then it should be offset with commas, or you could easily use brackets or dashes. Okay. So a non-restrictive, it's non-restrictive. You can remove it and it doesn't change the sentence. Okay. So here, take a look at this one. Take a look at the second example. This is a non-restrictive example. The next one. Counselor Simon Smith, who lives next door, is getting ruder. So imagine if I remove this dependent clause in the middle, who lives next door, right? And I just say, Counselor Simon Smith is getting ruder. No problem, right?
Yeah.
So here
it's additional.
It's additional. It's not essential to the meaning of the sentence. So it's non-restrictive. It doesn't restrict it. It doesn't restrict the meaning. Do you get the idea? I can remove it safely. But take a look at the first example. The man who lives next door is getting ruder. If I say the man is getting ruder, we don't know which man anymore. We've lost him. Because who lives next door, it's part of his identity. It's part of how we can recognize him and identify him. So we cannot remove it. Even though grammatically, if you say the man is getting ruder, this is a grammatical sentence. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's a part of the meaning of the sentence has been lost by removing this clause. Okay, so this is just another. This is, by the way, related to relative clauses. Do you remember relative? There are two types of relative clauses. There's I forgot the ones with which. Do you remember? Do you remember relative clauses?
No.
No. Relative clauses we have. I think they call them essential, non-essential. Let me very quickly check it. Because with relative clauses, by the way, this is a type of relative clause, who, because we have relative words like who, which. I'll tell you. Relative.
Describing, yeah.
Okay, relative pronouns, relative clauses. So a relative clause, you can already see it's a type of subordinating subordinate clause. So it's relevant to the topic we're talking about. And this is very important, by the way, in IELTS, because you will use them a lot. Do you see? One of them is who. So this restrictive sentence, we were talking about, this is already an example of a relative clause. It says we use relative pronouns to introduce relative clauses. Relative clauses tell us more about people or things. Like this one. Lord Thompson, who is 76, has just retired. Okay, so this type of relative clause is called, where is it here? I want the definition. There's a name. Where is it? I'm looking for the... Come on, where's the word? Non-something relative word.
There's a name for it?
There is
other
a name.
than
I'm looking for, rather than
Uh-huh.
restrictive and non-restrictive, I'm looking for this name.
Okay.
They haven't included the name. It's just a classification question. Defining, non-defining, exactly. so okay, so I wasted 5 minutes of your life just looking for this. Okay, so the whole thing I wanted to look for is this. Where is it? Defining, non-defining. Because in most books, by the way, they say defining, non-defining. They don't say restrictive. That's why I wanted to look for it. Where is it? The one where we were doing the, yeah, restrictive and non-restrictive. In most books, because I am going to hopefully send you the grammar advanced book. So in the lesson, you will find defining and non-defining.
Okay.
So it's just, I was just looking for the name. But the article we opened from the British Council page is they're discussing the same thing, okay? So if it's restrictive, it's defining. It's part of the sentence. It's part of the meaning of the sentence, like the man who lives next door, the teacher who helped me pass the exam. But if I say Mr. Michael, who helped me pass the exam, has left Libya. So I can just say Mr. Michael left Libya. We know the person we're talking about. We defined him already. Do you get the idea? So this extra information is non-restrictive. It's non-defining. I can remove it. Now, the easiest way to spot it is the comma.
Yes, I was just going to ask you, because that sentence, the writing, because that's why there's a comma around it. So
because it's non-essential information. Okay, this means in your writing, you're going to do the same thing. And by the way, it's very common to use relative. Let me take you back to the site. Using relative pronouns and relative clauses is a common part of academic writing. So if you're discussing a point, like the question we had yesterday, the one about increasing lifespans, increasing life expectancy. So you can say increasing life expectancy, which is one of the most widely debated topics nowadays, has taken up more attention by social scientists than ever before, for example. So, you'll find yourself automatically using which and that and which and...
Which, yeah.
Especially which.
A lot, yeah.
Because
especially in my writing now, I'm using it.
Yeah. So this is one of the lessons that's worth mastering. You really, I can send this to you later so you can read it. You will find this in the book. I'll send you as well. But it is one of the common things. So mastering it does help. That's why we have it in, and it's part of complex grammatical structures. If you're using a relative clause, if you're using it correctly, and you use it with other types of grammatical and other types of subordinate clauses, you're giving a chance for the examiners to give you a 7 and above. Do you understand the idea? You need to be able to use this kind of grammar. This kind of grammar is too difficult for a pre-intermediate student to use correctly, for example. That's why they don't get 7s in grammatical range and accuracy in the descriptor here. Grammatical range and accuracy. You need to use a variety of these structures, not just one of them. You need to use a group of them, and you need to make variations. Sometimes with which, sometimes with after, sometimes with other conjunctions that we will learn about now. So let's learn what other conjunctions or what other words can link to sentences, so we can make these complex sentences. Okay. Now let's take a look. Adverbial clauses. So here by adverbial, it's the same idea. We can take this this clause, this subordinate clause, and we can just throw it away, and we can replace it by an adverb. So he lost his double chin after he gave a beer. So he lost his double chin recently. Yeah. So we can just, because they're talking about, it's a time issue here. After he gave a beer, so there's some kind of time element, so recently. Okay?
Yep.
So this is just another type of clause, not what's... now this is really important. So here we have a group or a list of different subordinating... Yeah, because this is what you will use. These are some of the things that you will need to use to start complex sentences. To write a complex sentence in your own writing, you will need to use these tools. You'll need to use these words. Okay. So here, let's see some of these common subordinating conjunctions. You can see a group of them are relative pronouns, the ones that we were talking about. The who, the which, the where, and then you have the where is it? The ones I told you about yesterday. The contrast family, the but family. Remember yesterday I gave you a very rough definition. We have the but family. Let's mark the but family first, okay? No, unless it's a condition. No, that's also condition.
This is nice. I'm taking writing lessons with you, and I'm writing my own master's degree thing. Okay, this is good. I'm taking advantage of it.
Yeah, this might help you too in
it is actually, yes.
Yeah. What is it? I think these are the only ones we have which are sort of from the but family. Even if
although
there's although.
Even
Yeah. They don't have however. However is also, however you can include it.
However is used a lot as well. However is
maybe
used
it's
a
in
lot.
the other list. No, we don't have it in the other list now. But it's here. But it should be included. You can include it. However, despite, in spite of the fact, despite the fact that all of these are from the but family. They're about contrast. Then we have the and family. So the and family we have. They're not here. Okay, the and family are part of the cohesive words or the linking words, but it doesn't mean that you will have a complex sentence if you use them. So if you say, in addition to, no, I think you will, but they're not written here. Strange. But you do have the so kind of family here, as using it as a result, because so that since yes, if you're going to use it in the second clause, since the discovery of underwater gas, comma, many countries have invested heavily in offshore drills, full stop. This is a complex sentence. To get the idea. But since should be in the main, since should be in the main clause rather than in the subordinate one. We start in the beginning, I think. So that, and then we have until no, whether, no. So here I'm just trying to classify them roughly, but you don't really need to classify them. You just need to use them in the right place. That's all. Let me zoom out a little bit so they all appear. I can send you a copy of this. You can also learn how to use them. But also I need you to pay attention to model answers, because I'm going to send you a few model answers. And I want you to notice how they use these connecting words and how they use complex sentences.
How they use them.
Yeah, they use them a lot. And I'd like you to identify these complex sentences. Maybe this is a bit like homework that you can do. Maybe in this article, I'm not sure.
I'm waiting for the homework. I want to start writing.
Yeah. What is a sentence? This is a little the first sentence. I'm just trying to look if there's something we can skip. Simple sentence. Let me check. Complex sentence. Okay, we have the same thing, just more detailed. Think of this as the first part. Let's talk a little bit about the different types of sentences, okay? We don't want to sort of go over these too much, but it's good, like I said, sort of FYI stuff. So what is this?
You can skip it if it's not necessary. That's okay.
We'll go.
If you think it's not necessary, you can skip it. Yeah.
All right. It's not that it's not necessary. It's just useful. That's the idea. Okay. Let's go over it very, very briefly. So 4 types of sentences. So a declarative sentence, obviously from its name, it will state a fact. Because the idea, I'm telling you why this might be a little important is because the type that you will use in your writing is almost always from this type. It's almost always a declarative kind of sentence, the one that you're using. So it states a fact and it ends with a full stop. For example, he has every attribute of a dog except loyalty. Okay, so it's a fun one. I wonder if other dogs think poodles are members of a weird religious cult. Okay, so these are just sort of comic examples, but the point is the same. In your IELTS writing, you will always be declaring sentences because your sentences will not be imperative. An imperative sentence is a command sentence, right? So there's no point here in making an imperative sentence unless you're giving some kind of advice. Look at this sentence, and let's try to change these into more everyday examples. For example, as I've heard of them, you can say the increasing lifespan during the last 100 years has been directly attributed to the ongoing technological advances in medical and in healthcare. Full stop. I'm just declaring a fact. Do you get the idea? I'm just saying it. So just by saying a fact, you're declaring it. This classifies it as a declarative sentence. The other ones, you will not need to use them because in imperative, you're giving an order. So when a dog runs at you, whistle for him. It's a joke, but if we use if you need to improve your writing, practice more. I'm giving you some kind of imperative.
Order.
It's an order. You won't use this, and you won't need to use this kind of sentence in your IELTS. The same thing with interrogative sentences. You're not going to ask questions. right? An exclamatory sentence, excitement or emotion, again, not part of IELTS. Okay. All right, so this part is, I think it's just a sort of a repetition or a rephrase of the part we covered, the difference between simple sentence, complex sentence, right? Remember, with a simple sentence, it's just one independent clause. Do you see this one? You can't surprise a man with a dog. Subject, verb, surprise, man is the object. So this is a simple sentence, an independent clause, just one. It's not a complex sentence. Remember, in your IELTS, we want complex sentence. We want that combination of independent clause and dependent clause. This one is not. This one is not a complex sentence. There's no contrast. There's no addition. There's no subordinating conjunction. There's no although. There's no which. There's no who. Do you get the idea? So it's not. Yes. This one is not a simple sentence. We want a complex sentence. Let's talk in more detail about complex sentences. Take a look at this. So here with the graph, they're basically helping us.
Start playing with electricity. Okay.
You lost power.
Yep, sorry for that. Yep. So like on, off, on, off. Okay. That's okay now. Okay. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, no problem. So you can see here, when the cake is brown, comma, take it out of the oven or out the oven. So this is basically just a quick, like I said, maybe a revision of the first point we started with. So here you can see that when the cake is brown, it's a dependent clause. It's a subordinate clause. It's not a standalone sentence. Without the second part, it makes no sense. But the second part,
independent clause.
Take it out of the oven. Take it out the oven. This is a simple sentence. It's an independent clause. It's an imperative one, yes, but still, it is a sentence. It's clear. Take it out the oven. It's clear. Okay. So together, we have a complex sentence. Remember when we first started, I told you complex sentence doesn't mean complicated sentence. So a complex grammatical structure, it just needs to have a few features. The point of this lesson was just to get you used to what are these features. It's not a matter of hard or easy or simple and complicated. No, it's just a matter of these clauses and these conjunctions that you need to use, and you'll have a complex sentence as easy as this one. When the cake is brown, take it out of the oven. Complex sentence. Okay. Now here in the next part, we're going to talk in even more detail about. Here we have examples. Okay. And then even more types of. Okay, let's start with this one. So here we have regular examples. So here examples, okay, you can read these examples. Read the 5 examples first, please.
Well, like for myself or for you, for what? Get you.
No, okay, just read them so we can.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you can see the first one: stay in the bath until.
Stay in the bath until the phone rings. Yeah.
Yeah. So
stay in the bath, like
this is So here they're telling you that the dependent clause, the part that's not shaded. So let's for us, let's make it yellow. So the yellow parts here, these are dependent clause. They are not standalone. They cannot make sense without the rest of the sentence.
It's dependent. The independent. Okay.
Yeah, the yellow is dependent.
Dependent, and the other shaded ones are independent.
The shaded ones, the gray, they can stand alone, no problem. And when they stand alone, they are considered simple sentences. But they're complete. They have a complete thought, right? Yeah. Check number 4. It's very interesting. Leave. This is a simple sentence.
Leave.
Just leave. Why? Because it's an imperative verb. Leave. But because we added while, we made it into a complex sentence. So imagine these 4 words are these 4 words are considered grammatically a complex sentence. Leave while you can. You get the idea? Just because of this word, the subconjugating word, the subordinate conjunction, sorry. Okay, and the next part after we mark them, I want you to identify all right, now let's give you a little test. Now I want you, but let me remind you first of what I want you to find. Remember, in this little table, we agreed, where is it? Okay, in this paragraph, it says there are 3 dependent clauses, and what makes them dependent is certain words, right? And these words are subordinating conjunctions. Then we had a little list of subordinating conjunctions, this table. Remember? Words like after, although, as, before, the relative pronouns, which, have, where, and all these words. Your job is to now find me the conjunctions, the subordinating conjunctions. Where are they?
In what sentence?
In these 5 sentences.
Okay. Until.
Okay.
Until the phone rings.
Yes, and let's mark it. Let's mark it red. Okay, so that's correct. This is the first one.
Who?
Correct. Yeah.
Although the.
Right. Oops.
While.
So although is the one we want.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one.
While.
While is correct. What about the last example?
When.
Right.
When. Yeah.
And when again.
That's it, right? And when again, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So these words, these are the ones which are the things you need to know. These are the subordinate conjunctions that you need to use in order to create complex sentences. Because without them, you cannot create a complex sentence that links a simple one, which is the independent, to a subordinate clause, right? This is the glue. These red words, these are the glues. This is the glue that holds your sentences, that holds the independent clause with a dependent clause. All right?
Yep.
All right, so I think this should be enough for today, because the rest of them, I think I can give you, I can send you this as homework. Here, what they're doing is they're just giving you more details. I think we can use this as, but I would like you to read this. So I'm going to send it to you here, the 4 types of sentence structure. Yeah. So here they're just giving you more details of complex sentences. They're giving you types of complex sentences, not just any complex sentence. You can see the ones we did, because these are sort of a mix. All of them are complex. All of them are good. But in the next section, they'll tell you, I think, in more detail the types. There's a complex sentence, the normal one, like this one. The human brain never stops working until you stand up to speak in public. For example, this sentence. This is a regular one where you have an independent clause and a dependent clause, right? But look at this one. Take a look at the compound sentence.
I always want to be somebody, but I should have been more specific.
Right.
But
here, the secret isn't but. The secret is that both of them are independent. Do you see how?
I always wanted to be somebody. I should have been more specific. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
They basically, in this example, they basically link two complete clauses, two independent clauses. So here in this example, we have independent plus independent. Before it was always independent plus dependent.
Dependent, yeah.
So here we have sort of an upgrade. Two independent clauses used together and linked. And again, we're starting to see why cohesion is important, why grammar is important for cohesion. You get the idea?
Yeah.
So take a look at this, and then we have a compound complex one. And how can I write complex sentences? Using relative clauses, and you have examples, subordinate clauses, which we talked about. We have also some other nice examples, some conditionals. All right, so this is the idea. They're just giving you more details. But what I want you to focus on is not the classification, okay? I don't want you to pay too much attention to adverbial clause, blah, blah, the nomenclature, the naming itself. I don't want you to linger too much on it. I just want you to translate this into sort of practical knowledge. I want you, whenever you're reading a sentence, make another one in your mind. So whenever I'm reading a compound sentence, I always want it to be something, but I should have been writing. Humans have always wanted to live longer, but it has only been recently that this has, but only recently this has been possible. So two independent ones. Do you get the idea? So I just want you, for each thing you learn, forget this, the name, forget this compound. We're not interested in the name. You won't get a question which tells you what's this, what's that. No, but you need to do it. And the examiner knows what he's looking for. They know what you've written. That's his job to tell what kind of complex sentence you've written. And they will grade you accordingly. But for you, it doesn't matter what it's called. As long as you're using it correctly, that's what matters, okay? So so this one, I'll send you this sheet. And if you have any questions about it, then you can ask me, okay?
Okay. And the book, the vocabulary.
Yeah, the vocabulary book. Let me look for it. It's probably in one of the hard drives I have. I will need to upload it and then send you the link. So okay, good thing you reminded me. Okay, so let me do that now. Let me find it and upload it, and then I'll send it to you with this lesson. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome.
I'll be needing it.
Okay.
Yeah. And have a nice Eid.
Yes, you too. And this means Saturday will probably be off. I'm not sure. I think it'll probably be off because it will be the second day. I'm not sure. We'll see about it, but it might be off. I don't know.
Okay. Enjoy your time.
Yeah, enjoy your time too. All right, I will.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No, because I was thinking. No, you didn't. No, I was just thinking loudly if Saturday should be off, or if we can do it. I think we can negotiate that on Friday. We can sort of reach an agreement.
Okay.
All right then. So good night, and I'll see you next time.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very
Okay.
much.
Bye bye.